There's a specific type of person who never ever asks for help. Not because they're proud, not because they have it all together, but because somewhere along the way, their nervous system quietly learned that asking was pointless, that nobody would show up. So they stopped asking. And then, this is the wild part, they grew up, forgot that any of this happened, and started calling it independence. That's not a personality trait, that's an adaptation, and psychology has a name for it. Today, we're going to talk about habits, completely ordinary, totally unremarkable habits that are actually the fingerprints of childhood emotional neglect. These aren't dramatic. That's what makes them so easy to miss. You've probably done 3 of them already today. If this is your first time here, this channel is where we break down the psychology behind why people are the way they are, including you. Hit subscribe and the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Before we get into the habits, let's be clear about what childhood neglect actually is, because most people picture something extreme when they hear that word. They think of children going hungry or locked in rooms or visibly abandoned. And yes, that is neglect, but there's a quieter version that leaves almost no visible evidence, and it's far more common. Psychologists call it childhood emotional neglect, a term coined by Dr. Janice Webb. It's not about what your parents did to you, it's about what they didn't do. The emotions they didn't ask about, the bad days they didn't notice, the kid who was technically fed, clothed, and taken to school, but who learned in 1,000 tiny moments that their inner world was invisible. Here's the truly strange thing about childhood emotional neglect. Because nothing happened, there's no memory to point to, no incident, just a vague, lifelong sense that something is slightly off, that you're somehow less than, that other people seem to navigate emotions more naturally than you do. And it shows up in habits. Let's talk about them. The first one is over-apologizing, and I don't mean the polite sorry you say when you bump into someone. I mean the compulsive, reflexive, almost involuntary sorry that comes out before you've even decided to apologize. Sorry for taking up space, sorry for having a question, sorry for existing in a moment where someone might be slightly inconvenienced by your presence. This habit is so normalized that people wear it as a quirk. Oh, I just apologize a lot. It's a Canadian thing. Haha. But psychology tells a different story. When a child's emotional needs are consistently ignored or dismissed, they internalize a very specific belief. I am too much and I am not enough, simultaneously. The apology is a preemptive move. It says, I know I'm an inconvenience, I'm already sorry, please don't reject me. It's self-erasure dressed up as politeness. Dr. Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion actually found that people who over-apologize tend to have significantly higher rates of shame, not guilt. The difference being that guilt says, I did something bad, while shame says, I am something bad. That distinction matters enormously. The second habit, an almost supernatural ability to read the room. These are the people who walk into a space and within 60 seconds have clocked everyone's mood, identified who's tense, figured out the safest conversational territory, and adjusted themselves accordingly, all without thinking about it. From the outside, it looks like emotional intelligence, and it is, technically, but the origin story is darker than the skill itself. When children grow up in homes where a parent's mood was unpredictable, not necessarily violent, just volatile, they develop hypervigilance as a survival strategy, reading faces, reading tone, reading the energy of a room before you've even put your bag down. That's not a gift, that was a necessity. The fun fact here, and it genuinely is fascinating, is that research from the University of Toronto found that people who grew up in emotionally unpredictable households show activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, even in response to neutral facial expressions. Their brains learned to search for danger in faces that aren't showing any. The skill is real. The exhaustion that comes with it is also real. Third habit, doing everything alone and finding it deeply uncomfortable when someone tries to help. Someone offers to carry something heavy. No, I've got it. Someone offers to drive. It's fine, I'll take the train. Someone notices you're struggling and asks if you need anything, and something in your chest tightens, and you say, I'm totally fine, honestly, and you mean it, even though you're clearly not. This is the adaptation I mentioned at the very top of this video. Children who didn't receive consistent emotional support don't just grow up without it, they grow up around the absence of it. They build their entire sense of competence and identity around not needing, because needing, in their early experience, led to nowhere, or worse, led to being made to feel like a burden. There's a term in attachment theory, dismissive avoidant attachment, and one of its defining features is what researchers call compulsive self-reliance. It looks like strength, it presents as strength, but underneath it is a grief that most of these people have never actually felt because they learned to outrun it before they ever knew what it was. Number 4 is something almost no one talks about, not knowing what you want. Not in the deep existential sense, just on a Tuesday. Someone asks where you want to go for lunch and your mind goes blank, not because you're being polite and deferring, because you genuinely, truly don't know. This one runs deeper than it seems. Children who grew up in emotionally neglectful environments were rarely, if ever, asked what they felt, what they wanted, what they preferred. Their inner world was not a relevant factor in how the household operated, so they never developed the habit of checking in with themselves, because doing so served no purpose. Psychologists have a name for the extreme end of this, alexithymia, literally no words for feelings, and studies suggest it's far more prevalent than anyone expected, affecting roughly 10% of the general population. But the milder version, that chronic fuzziness about your own preferences and desires, that's even more widespread, and it traces back over and over to early environments where your inner world simply wasn't reflected back to you. Fifth habit, feeling vaguely guilty when things are going well. This one is subtle, and it catches people off guard when they recognize it. Things are good, work is fine, relationships are fine, life is mostly okay, and there's this low-grade discomfort, a waiting, like something is about to go wrong, and you don't trust the calm. For some people, it manifests as self-sabotage. For others, it's just a background hum of unease during peaceful periods. And for many, it shows up as an inability to fully enjoy good moments. Not depression exactly, just an arm's-length relationship with your own happiness. Here's what's happening psychologically. If your early environment was one where attunement, a parent truly seeing you and responding to your emotional state, was absent, your nervous system never learned that safety is stable. Safety was either not present, or it was temporary, or it wasn't safe to trust. So your body, even decades later, treats contentment like a warning sign, braces for impact, stays ready. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote extensively about this in his research on how early emotional environments reshape the nervous system, and the core insight is that the body doesn't distinguish between a memory and a present moment threat. It responds to the pattern, not the calendar. Last one, and this might be the most quietly devastating, being your own harshest critic, but only ever in private. Publicly, many people with childhood emotional neglect backgrounds are high-functioning, competent, even impressive, but alone, the internal voice is relentless. A mistake at work at 9 a.m. becomes a full character assassination by 9 p.m. A slightly awkward thing said in a conversation gets replayed on a loop for 3 days. What's happening here is that the critical voice that was external in childhood, dismissive comments, emotional unavailability interpreted by a child's brain as proof of their own inadequacy, gets internalized so thoroughly that the child eventually becomes their own dismisser. They don't need the neglect to continue from the outside. They've built the infrastructure to continue it themselves. The almost poetic cruelty of this is that these same people are often extraordinarily kind and patient with everyone else. They would never speak to a friend the way they speak to themselves. That gap between how you treat others and how you treat yourself is often one of the clearest markers of early emotional neglect that therapists look for. Here's what I want to leave you with. None of these habits make you broken. They make you adapted. Your nervous system did exactly what it was supposed to do with the environment it was given. That's not a flaw. That's biology being very, very clever on your behalf. The point of understanding this isn't to look back at your childhood and assign blame. Most parents who were emotionally unavailable were themselves raised by people who had no idea what emotional attunement even looked like. The cycle is old. You just happen to be the generation sitting in front of a psychology video, which means you're also the generation where the cycle can change. Recognition is not a small thing. It is, in fact, the whole first step. Now, I genuinely want to know which of these 6 habits landed for you. Not in a "this is painful" way, just which one made you go, "Oh, that's me." Drop it in the comments. You'll probably find you're in good company. And if you want to go deeper into the psychology of early attachment and how it shapes adult behavior, I've got more coming your way, so stay close.